We want to make our assembler a little bit smarter so that it's easier for us to write code. So go ahead into the resources section and open up the file that's there, and it's called assembler labels declarations. So if you open it up, you'll get something like this. So if there's anything in it, just press the clear button. Now you'll notice that there's a few extra things in here. First of all, there's a column here at the beginning called label. So that's an extra column here. You'll also note that the assemble buttons have been split into two. There's an assembler pass 1 and an assembler pass 2. The rest of these buttons are the same. And over at the right hand side here, you'll see that I've also got the output in the RAM. So this is the actual memory, the 256 bytes of memory. We've got it also in decimal here as well. And there's also this column here, these four columns here, that are, again, they're the opcode, RA, RB and byte. And this is the disassembled code, and you can see it's called disassembled. So we'll talk about that whenever we work through an example. The first thing to note about this assembler and debugger version is that it's backward compatible. So it means that we can write the same code in this version as we did in the previous versions. So for example, we could load up register R0 with a value of 1, and now we press the pass 1 and then the pass 2, and then we can press the debug, and it will run through the code as it did previously. So it means that we can still use this version to run through all of our old code. But we've added a few extra things into this to make it a bit simpler. So let's say, for example, we had data R0 was a value of 5 and data R1 is a value of 3, and we wanted to use the jump command, and we wanted to jump back to this position here. Then we had to count to find that position. We had to say 0, 1, 2. So that would be position 2. So therefore we could write the jump position is a 0.2. So whenever we assemble it and they do the two passes and press the debug, if you head over here, you'll see it jumps to line 2 and it continues jumping. But we don't want to have to work out all of these jump positions by ourselves from counting from the first position along. We want the assembler to do that for us. So we can do that by adding a label. So let's say we want to get back to this position here, then we could call that position loop 1, and it meant that we were going to jump to that loop 1, so we put loop 1 here. So rather than having to count to find loop 1, we can just put in the label here and it'll take us directly back to that label. So whenever I assemble this here, it will come up with exactly the same code as we have here. So if we press the assemble, and you can see we've got exactly the same code, and the assembler now has worked out all of our jump positions. So for example, this loop 1 here, loop 1 should have the value of 2, and when you come down here you'll see that's got the value of 2. So it does work. So let's look at an example here just to show that actually running through. So let's say we started off with JMP, and we'll jump to loop 1 and we'll call this loop 1 position here, and then from here we'll jump to loop 2 and we'll call this loop 2, and you can see the route we're going to take here. We're going to jump to loop 3 and we'll call this loop 3, and from that we'll jump to loop 4 and we'll call this point here loop 4, and at this point here we'll have the end of the program. So you can see it's going to jump to loop 1, to 2, to 3, to 4, to the end. Now if we were to try and work this out for ourselves, we would have to work out all of the relative jumps, but as it stands now, the assembler is going to do that for us. So if I press the assemble, you can see it's worked out all of the jumps for us, and when we go through the second pass, it actually generates the binary equivalent of the assembler. So if we press the debug, and you'll see it jumping to the respective positions. Okay, we'll do run it once more. And you can see it jumping. So this makes it a lot simpler for us to write our assembly language code. So the 4 lines here are opcode, array, RB and byte. This is our disassembled code. It's called a disassembled code because there's a direct one-to-one relationship between the actual machine code here and the opcode and data. So for example, the jump command is this binary number, and then the byte is this binary number, and then we've got another jump command which is this binary number here, and then the next binary number is this one. So we have a one-to-one equivalence between the actual machine code 0 and 1s and the assembly language here. So this is called the disassembled code. Now the disassembled codes now is actually different from our assembly language program. The disassembled code doesn't contain any of these labels, and the labels here are replaced by the actual values for the jump positions. So you can see here that we can go from our assembly language over to this code here, but we can't go from the disassembled code back to our actual assembly language program, because this data here, or this information about labels, names, it gets lost whenever we go from here over to here. But that doesn't matter because we don't actually need to go from this disassembled code back to our assembly language. We only need to go, in this instance, in the one direction. So let's have a look at a few other things that we've added here. If you press clear, and then when we were adding in information into a register, so again we could go register R0, and we could put in the number in binary. Well, what I've done is I've changed it so we can actually add the number in decimal. It just makes it a bit easier. But whenever we add the number in decimal, we're going to add it in a different format. We're going to put the decimal in here. But to show that it is actually being added as a decimal number, we can put the hash in front of it. So this is data hash 5 R0, so it adds the number 5 into R0. So when we assemble it, you'll see it assembles into the same code as if we had just put the actual binary in this cell here. So we can assemble and debug it, and it just works as usual. So this is called immediate addressing, so we're putting the actual number 5 into that register R0. But we'll go on to the different types of addressing modes in a later video. Now another important thing that we've added here is the idea of using a declaration. So let's say we wanted to add two numbers together. We could say we wanted to have, and we'll put this little line here, declarations. Okay, so we want to add two numbers together. So let's say that we're going to have the code sitting in one part of our memory, and we're going to have the data sitting in another part of the memory, and that's how a program would normally be loaded and ran. We would have the program code in one part and the data in another part. So what we could do is we could find a position for the actual data. So the start address for the data, we could call it start address, and we could choose an actual start address. So let's say, for example, we wanted to start at this point here, which is line 18, so we could put in start address 18. So 18 actually refers to the memory location, so it's actually the cell 18 in memory. And let's say we're going to add two numbers. We could call the first number first, and we could call the second number second. Now what this does is it says that the first number sits in memory location 18, and then it automatically adds on, and the second number will sit in memory location 19. So if we wanted to, we could put in, say, the number 3 and the number 4. And I'll actually change the format of these, because they're simply numbers. Okay, so I'll put in number. Okay, so we're going to put the first is going to refer to a memory location 18, second will refer to a memory location 19. So we can move these values into memory by using the store command. So we can type in store first R0 and store second R0. So what this does is it takes the value 3, it puts it into register R0, and then moves that into the memory location given by first, which is the memory location 18. It then goes and it moves 4 into R0, and it moves the value of 4 into the memory location given by second. So that memory location is the next one down, which is going to be 19. So if we press assemble, you can see here it's generated this code. Now a thing to note here is that there's only one line of code here in the assembler, but the actual code is actually in 3 lines. So we've actually got 3 lines of code, so you could actually say here that we're actually generating microcode. Okay, so we've got a small amount of code generating another set of code. But that doesn't matter for now, we can talk about that at some other point in time. So let's run through this and we'll see it actually working. So you'll see the numbers appearing. So we're going to have the number 3 appearing here and the number 4 appearing in this location here. Now I think I actually had a there you go. So you can see it actually in decimal here as well. Okay, so we're able to now load this information very quickly into memory. So let's say we want to add these two numbers together. So what we can do is we can then say we'll load one of them into a register. So we could load first into register R0. So if we run through this here again, we've put both numbers into memory, and then we've taken first out of the memory and we've put it back into register R0. So register R0 will contain the value of 3. Now what we want to do is add them together, but what we can do now is use the add command, but we can add the second to our register R0. Again, this is an extra section that we've added in. We weren't able to do this before. So whenever I press assemble debug, how we work through, we're going to get the answer 7 in R0. So you can see here R0 now contains the answer 7. So now what we want to do is we want to take that R0 and we want to store it somewhere, and we want to store it in a memory location called result. So to place the result in memory, we can use the data command, and we can put the result into a free register. Let's say we put it into R1. So this puts the memory location result. So the memory location is actually, well, that's 18, 19, so the result will be 20. So it'll put 20 into register R1, and then we can store the value R1, R0, and we can put the end command. Now we'll put this through the first pass of the assembler, and we can see the last 3 lines here. We've got the value 20 in register R1, and then we're going to store the contents of register R0, which is the sum, into the memory location given by register R1, which is this 20. So let's go ahead and we'll run that now. So assemble the second time, and the debug, and you'll see the values getting added in. We've got a value 3, a value 4, and when it gets down to the end, it'll put the summation in, which will be a value of 7. And we see we've got 7 in here. If we run this down, you'll see that we've got 7 in this memory location. So let's say we want to run this program on a couple of different numbers. So let's say we want to use the numbers 5 and the number 7. So we've got 5 and 7 read in here, and we do an assemble, and we run through the debugger, and it's going to put 5 in this memory location, 7 into this memory location, and the result is going to go into the next memory location here. So we've actually come quite far in this video. We could imagine having a high level language which we create ourselves, which we will later on in the course, and from that high level language we can define 3 variables. One would be called first, one would be called second, and one would be called result. And we could write a program first plus second equals result. And then if we want to be in the actual program, we can define the values of first and second, and we can say first is 5 and second is 7. And then we can compile that program, and when we've compiled it, we could get the assembly language code, which would look like this, and then it could be assembled to this code here, and the second pass in the assembling process would give us our actual machine code. And you can see here that we've got our main parts, we've got our assembly language here, we've got our disassembled code here, we've got our machine code here, and the machine code is split into the actual program, which is here, and we've got our data, which is here. So it's interesting to contrast what we have now from where we were when we started at the very beginning of the very first CPU design course. We started off with AND gates and OR gates, and we're moving up, and by using levels of abstraction we're now getting close to a high level language. And in fact we could write a little bit of a high level language, although it would be a little bit contrived, but we could write it and we could compile it to this assembly language and then generate our machine code and get the program to run. So we'll go on and do that in the next video. So thank you for listening. I'll get you in the next video. Goodbye.